Welcome back, everybody.
Hi,
Hi,
Tilly.
Tzip.
Hi.
Hi, Karin Bar,
Hi.
Hi.
multidisciplinary artist here in Connecticut. Hey, Karin, how are you?
Hi. I'm good, thank you.
I must tell you,
Good.
when I see the things that you are doing, before we'll go into specification, I feel the burden that you carry on you, like a big bag of history of all of us.
Thank you. I feel seen. Thank you, really. I do feel I carry a lot of DNA anxiety and whatever my ancestors were carrying, I'm definitely bringing it to this day and age. There's a
But
lot of
most of the world can connect to your stuff.
Well,
I
we
hope
would
so. I
say
think we all
Karin's
are.
work is focused on immigrations, misplaced people, and literally a lot of packages carrying on everybody's back.
Yes, it's displaced people, immigrants, migrants, and also the futuristic, nostalgic as something that we all have that it feels like we've been here before, but it's very futuristic. It's not the same. So that's kind of like what inspires me and
What do you
mostly
mean by
what
that? What do you mean by that?
Look at her,
futuristic.
how she lives. Look at
Hold
her
on.
room.
No, what do you mean by that, Karin?
I feel that the world is very in a futuristic, like when I was a child we used to say in the future. I feel that this is in the future,
Yes.
but there's so many things that I'm very nostalgic to that are from the past, and there's a fine line, or sometimes it's a juxtaposition between the future and nostalgia. And I find that a lot of my collages are right in between. I try to bring things that I'm very nostalgic to into a very futuristic, in the future kind of like essence.
So there is no clash between the nostalgia and your futuristic where you take it. There's not the juxtaposition is not really a
So
clash.
when I juxtapose them, they clash and they create some sort of a drama and the displacement, the feeling of loneliness in this world because of the future, and being nostalgic is basically not being a happy person if you're always thinking about the past. So if you bring something so nostalgic into your work, but you're also very futuristic, I can get honest about like where does it play a fine line in my mental health, because it plays something between like, if depression is something about always looking to the past and anxiety is about worrying about the future, I feel that I bring those two elements into the present. And that's where I see like the clash is more about like the emotions that we receive from it. The aesthetics, I find it to be like we always play in between those lines.
But I somehow must tell you, as Chile knows, I am very nostalgic. I am waiting to bring things that were in the past to the future. And my anxiety is that the future will take away a lot of the things that really defined who I am.
I think in a way my nostalgia is the same way. It really defines me because I see how that informs decisions, style, music. At the end of the day, I was born in 79, but my essence was born in 59. Like there's a disconnect that I feel. And I think a big part of it, of what I see in nostalgia, the good and the bad of it, is how nostalgia is like connecting all of us. We share something, but it's not real, because how we remember it is how we remember it. Like if I talk to you about the 70s, you can tell me it was a shitty time and I'll be like, wow, I thought it was amazing, because it's such a like
This is the combination, this is the difference between memories and nostalgic memory, because nostalgia is a very personal thing. But do you think that for you, nostalgia is protecting you, or taking you away from where you want to go?
I think it puts a set of glasses on my eyes and allows me to see things with more uh, fuller feelings, because I'm like, I'm lingering and longing into this something, and I think nostalgia is very warm. Nostalgia is something that's like the familiar is actually make me feel so good about things. So that's how I gravitate to nostalgia, for the warmth, for the homey feeling, I would say. Because the way I see nostalgia, again, like I think some people are nostalgic to a feeling, some people are nostalgic. I'm nostalgic to smells. Like a smell would really throw me off. So I think that's how I kind of like, I always try to see what can I bring into my art that has the same kind of like invoke a feeling or invoke an emotion.
Every
really
art has
think-
to evoke emotion. If not, it's not really communicative.
But do you really think that misplaced people that are being pushed and moved to and they have to move to other places, they carry nostalgia with them? I don't think in the beginning they carry nostalgia. I
Yes,
think
they
it
do.
comes much later.
So,
I keep asking them, and they say they do. Even my students, I have students who came when they were 4, 5, 6, and I ask about their parents, and they carry the nostalgia with them.
But depends on the conditions of coming, because if you come like us, you go on an airplane and you come and you land on the other
I am not an
side.
immigrant.
So no. But you stay on the
Yeah,
other side.
I'm
You have nostalgia with you, but when you have different conditions and you're being pushed away
course.
from home
But
and you're being replaced, by force. I don't know that nostalgia is really taking place right away. I think it
the more
takes
difficult it is, the more the nostalgia plays part of their life. But don't forget, a lot of refugees before you were even born, let's say in Israel, whatever you say, they were embraced by, embraced. No, embraced by the country. The country tried, never mind so many mistakes, but at least there was a feeling that they are welcome until a certain, well, there was a lot of effort to welcome them. Today, refugees is something else. Many times. Most refugees that we call them refugees is not the people you are talking about. It's people who are really misplaced, really refugees, really didn't come out of choice or they ran away from. It's different.
I think it's different. I have three different perspectives on three different titles that we use. So immigration is one thing, displaced is another thing, and migrants is another thing.
Right.
And that's what made the move. It's not the act of moving, it's what was the cause of it. So I
Right.
think when we talk about immigration, and I worked as head of research and content for an app that was providing immigrants a community for 3 years, most of my research found out that people always have that connection to food, to music, to the holidays that connects the cultural aspect, and that brings some of the nostalgia because they always connect a little bit
Right.
of the culture and
Like me.
nostalgia. But when you're a migrant or a refugee or a displaced person, specifically in the last 5 6 years, when we're seeing that kind of like trafficking of people, because it's not logic for somebody to be moved from one place to another as a political opponent, and this is what we're seeing. I'm sure they have nostalgia, but I don't think this is in their DNA to regret or look back. They only look forward. They
Sure, they
only want
cannot
to.
look back
That's
because
why.
it's
That's
yeah,
why I'm
sure, they ran
saying.
away.
So the dream that they carry is not the same dream as mine. When I decided to relocate myself with the privilege of money and an airplane and a suitcase, I knew that whether right now it's relevant or not, I have a place to go back to. In
Right.
reality, I don't, the way I see myself. I do not have a place. I have a citizenship, but it's not a place I see myself moving back.
Wow.
Why not moving back to Israel?
No, it's okay. So
She said,
I am the
wow, not
opposite.
why.
I said, wow, because with me, it's always wanting to go back.
So I think my experience of immigration has been a very interesting one. I've went back and forth a lot, and I felt like a refugee because I didn't feel at home at where I was born. I'd never felt at home, and I felt as a refugee because I didn't connect. And when I went back, I spent 10 years over there. I met my husband. I got married over there. I have so much love for that country, but as soon as we moved, I realized that I feel a lot more like myself in a different cultural environment, and it made me blossom, I think, more being away from Israel versus being in Israel. But I have so much respect for the nostalgia that I have. If we talk right now,
But
I
this
can.
is something else, Karin, because basically your personal situation, everybody carries its own personal situation, and try to cross this voyage, somehow, and it comes with nostalgia. This is natural, you remember many things, even if you stay home. It doesn't mean anything. Nostalgia, it takes you to places, or you take it with you wherever it hits. But I want to
Like
ask you
even
about what? I want to ask you about your work. How do you bring all these to your characters in your videos?
And all the groups you talked about in terms of prop, plastic bags, right? Plastic bags.
plastic bags. The day of the opening at Zaz, which was not last Wednesday, the Wednesday before that, I left the space and we saw the artwork. Me and my friend were going to eat sushi, and we passed a group of people with big bags, and they're all standing against a corner next to an hotel. And I was telling her, these are migrants from Venezuela. These are the people that I'm talking about. And she's like, no, really? I'm like, yeah, this hotel was given to them by the city
Yes.
in Times Square, and this is where they live. So I try to tell her that, like, the plastic bags are not disconnected from our literal day-to-day
Yes.
reality.
Right.
So for me, the plastic bags it started off as seeing a motif during the whole research that I've done on migrants and where they go, where they're coming from. It doesn't matter. There's always something about carrying this bag. Sometimes it's like a burner phone and another hoodie, and they always have like an Adidas or something. They're always very branded, but that's what they carry when they leave the house. But it's also what people carry when there's a climate crisis, which is another thing that I find very inspiring and I try to bring into my work. So if you leave your house and it's flooded, you leave with a plastic bag. You never leave with a suitcase. And it's
Yeah.
like, suitcase is privilege. So I think that's something that as a props for me was I I got obsessed about the plastic bags and the texture, like what it means, that color, everything about that kind of like got me to research a lot. I'll explain more about my process, which has to do a lot about why do I deep dive into textures. But Tzili, you asked me a question before that, and I answered
Yeah.
one question and the other. How do I bring?
Yes. How you bring all of those things that we talked about into your art?
So as an artist, I started in photography. But at some point during my career, I realized that I was more interested in collage and using my own photography and putting it into collage form. Collage developed into animated collage, which I
Ah,
start animating and moving things around the frame. So when I call myself a multidisciplinary, it's because I was able to do a wide transition. If I talk programs from taking photos to doing Photoshop to doing Premiere to doing After Effects, so I'm doing all those like elements on my own as a part of my collage work and my experiments. So collage allows me to bring a lot of everything into one place, and
assembly, right?
and you need to see how all the elements are contributing to the story and authenticating it for you. It's not authenticating it as a real thing, but just how does this make you feel real. In one of my works, it looks like people are walking on water, and for me it was like very important to have that sense of feeling that they're almost drowning. So I wanted to make sure that like the way I place them is a little bit kind of like creating anxiety that you think they're going to drown.
Yeah.
uh, and I
Right.
use the images in the collage. I consider it as a brush, basically. So
As a what?
anything that as a brush,
Oh,
like
okay.
paintbrush.
Of
So
course.
basically,
Right.
I see it almost like as a painter, that instead of colors in a bucket, I have references of visuals or textures or things that are from my life that I put together into a new reality.
So each collage creates a specific reality.
Uh, a version of reality. Not,
Oh,
not so specific. A version of it. Every time it's a view into some reality. Some of my work are very minimalist, and they tell a more aspirational story of like as what would be a utopian kind of life that I consider. Some of them are very dystopian. It really runs on the gamut between utopia and dystopia.
So in what way your own history goes into the images you create?
I think this Return to Sender, the exhibition I'm showing right now, is the most personal work that I've done that brought the deepest fears and realities that I deal with. I think being an immigrant and considering my grandparents' story made me realize that I'm not an immigrant alone. I've been the granddaughter of an immigrant, and like to see how my whole family at the end of the day are always moving, which is a little bit the story of the Jewish person in the world.
So where they came from?
My grandmother came from Casablanca, and my other grandmother came from Florence. So my
Oh,
family is Italian, 14 generations. My great grand uncle was the rabbi of Florence during the Holocaust. He survived. He helped save all the Jewish that lived in Florence, but his family and him, most of them died. So I went to see the street named after him in Florence, and that started creating some sort of interesting story that I wanted to find out more about that part of the family and why they had to leave Italy when they left Italy, and they never got back, but they have 14 generations back. So the Medicis had somebody from my family related to them.
that's what I
And
wanted to ask you.
I'm, as an Israeli citizen, I want to go back to Italy because I feel there's so much roots for me over there
Right.
that I need to explore. And then on the other side, it's again a lot of generations in Casablanca. My grandmother is her last family is Alon, but they originally are from Tzfat. And basically from Tzfat, when there was no food, they
Perfect.
moved. So they're originally, and I just thought they're both stories are sad and inspiring for me to see, because I live in Connecticut, I don't live in Israel. My family worked hard to get to Israel, but I ended up leaving, so my perspective is from the outside. I think if I was living in Israel, I wouldn't be able to create this story from the inside.
Right. But I envy you because, I think about my mother. She came from a small town in Poland. And I, until today, cannot, I don't know what she carried with her in terms of, let's say, visuals. I don't know how, in any way, her experience um, did the path for the future for her. I don't even know much about her lane of memories like your, grandparents, mothers. So in a way, you have much more to work with, you know. You have a
There's a lot of
much
knowledge.
more possessions, spiritual and emotional possessions,
Yes.
and you're
I, I
using it.
think I think I have more. This is the nostalgic part. I gravitate towards these stories, the photos. Like I keep them, I look at them, I view them. I care so much. Like I think that's a big part of me that like they left me some of the information, but I decided to keep on searching for more information because I thought there was an interesting story to be told
Right.
for me. Again, as a person who didn't think family and roots were a big thing, I never cared about it. And then one day I was just like, when I turned 40, by the way, I realized that I wanted to know more. And I actually went to Italy and Morocco on my 40th because I wanted to see where my family's from.
Wow.
But it's interesting because everybody has their, story, especially when everybody's moving around. And my grandmother came from Budapest, and basically her father was in the army, and they told him, just leave, go to Palestine. And he picked up the family and went. And she took me, we never went, to Budapest. I knew Budapest almost by heart. And I felt very much part of Budapest, but I've never been there. And then later on, when I
So you're
went
lucky
there
too.
with my mom and my sister, I had nothing to do with this city. It's just I carried the memory and the nostalgia with my grandmother, but we were both in Israel. And now she's here with me in New York. So, you know, I don't know if she knows it, but she's with me in New York. She's with me everywhere. It's really the sentiment, you know, the personal
The nostalgia.
sentiment that you put into your basket and you carry it with you, and then you paint it in the colors that you like, and it serves you every time in a different way, and you use it every time in a different way, and that's what makes it beautiful. But I think when a move like that is traumatic, it takes time even to save yourself from the trauma and to survive and to be able to move on. And you have expectations that the next place will save you. So you create a different sentiment totally that is detached from the past and is attached to the future because you're looking forward to something else that will be better. So, and then you pass it to the next generation. So it's really, it has a very interesting journey. But I want you to go back to your art, to your pieces. You planted your figures this time in a very in buildings and in the very Manhattan buildings. Why did you do that? Why did you bring them to the city?
First of all, I saw them in the city first when they were coming off the buses, and I realized the journey they've gone through, because crossing from Venezuela, getting to the US, ending up on a bus for 16, 18 hours, I don't know how long it is, and they're dropping you off at Times Square. That was
Unbelievable.
insane experience I can imagine for anybody, not just a migrant.
Yeah, I was amazed when I heard about it. It's like, you know, amazing.
So I think that was the first thing for me, like the how dare you do this to people, to kids, that kind of experience, because it's supposed to be amazing. It's supposed to be like the most toured place in the world, but in reality it's a scary place. And the other thing, I'm most of my work is inspired by urban lifestyle and urban skylines. I find that the changing of skyline is a big part of where I see the nostalgia, how you look at buildings, how they were before, and how the landscape is changing all around you. So New York has always been like my, it's like I have a lot of
Artistic
passions into
playground.
buildings.
Let's talk about AI.
Okay.
Wow, I'm afraid of AI. Oh my God.
I'll explain what I do with AI. I'm no expert. I'm an early adopter player, and I went for creating visual in AI when I wanted to create a story about migrants, and I realized that I wasn't allowed to take photos or use photos that are not mine. And all of a sudden, the experience of showing a community, a group of people, without being allowed to access real footage kind of put me in a like question mark, like how do I talk about migrants without having migrants? And again, I live in Connecticut in a forest. It's also very detached from my day to day. I see it, but I can't like really capture that reality. And that's what made me go to Midjourney and create an AI prompt to create visual of migrants. And for me, what I wanted to bring in the photo was mostly plastic bags, and the aesthetics that I found very eye-catching in every news photo that I've seen, like the mass of people and what they're carrying with them. So I use Midjourney, which is a platform to create AI images. The way you do it, you describe what you want to get. So I describe the complete scene of the type of color scheme that I wanted, texture, how many people, what's
So
their
what is
emotion.
it? You feed the computer?
You go into what would be considered a chatbot, and you write slash imagine, and then you write the prompt, and the prompt can be migrants crossing a border holding plastic bags, wide angle, 5 people, despair is an emotion, and you press enter, and then there's an AI generator that basically creates these visuals.
But it creates one visual, or it gives you
It
option.
creates four, it's a set of four, and then out of the four, you can enlarge each one of them, you can develop them, you can create changes in them.
Also, you
What
can play with it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I've done is for a couple of months, I experimented more and more and more creating these visuals. But then I cut them, put them in my collages that are based on my own photography, and then I create a collaboration. So basically,
Collaboration with the chat
yes.
box.
Yeah.
Yes. So my collages are originally mine, my own world. But I needed characters in my movie and I couldn't get anybody. So I created them. And now I have an army. I can actually I have this folder open if you want to see. I have an
Yes.
army of these visuals because I kept on exploring what would be the aesthetics that I'm looking for. And I was very specific on a color palette. There's a specific blue that I like in the sunrise, and I think it's the dawn of a new day. So I wanted to get that kind of like that blue. So they're all in blue because that was the color that kind of like led into the story that I wanted to tell.
So basically, you created yourself an arsenal of information that you can play with. So why are you afraid of it?
Oh, because this is like a great way to use AI, but AI can also write scripts that screenwriters will be abolished. That's it. No more screenwriter. They will write a script and then somebody will just come and correct it. You'll be surprised. They can do translations. You don't need translators anymore. They will do the translation and somebody will just go over it and get some peanuts for
Well,
that.
this is not the first time that technology creates a new situation.
But now it's
that,
much more sophisticated, much more. A lot of
right.
professions will disappear.
A lot of professions disappeared already and will disappear more, but
We have to stop it.
But many new fields will rise and will develop. The question is,
You have to see the cost and
Right.
the gain and the cost. And apparently the loss is more than the gains.
I don't think you can stop it. The question
So
is,
you
what
can.
do we
Government
do?
already start to stop it for at least 6 months to see and research the damage.
Right. But I think that what we need to do is to study it very well
That's
and
what I'm
learn
saying. First study and then
how
put it
to-
out.
and then how to work with everybody around it and then create new
That's what they are
areas of
doing now. They're
function.
stopping it for 6 months, some countries. They want to study it, see exactly. But scientists, it's not just folklore, that it can be very damaging.
Do you feel, Karin, that it limits you or helps you or enable you to do things differently? What do you feel about it?
Oh, she already told us and she really enjoys it.
I'll start with like even before what I feel about it. I
I'm
think the
taking,
conversation about it.
but I'm talking about the whole concept, not only
Yeah.
for your videos. Yeah.
So the conversation about AI, I find it to be very interesting and very polarizing. I think a lot of people are intimidated and a lot of people see the potential. I can tell you that if we would have had this conversation 12 years ago about Twitter, you probably would have said Twitter is an amazing platform. Twitter is a
But
great thing.
internet altogether, sure.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Look how much damage Twitter is doing.
Yeah, but
Everything
12 years ago, people
But
would
if there will
think
be a
about the
research
value
and
of
they will
Twitter.
take
So
5,000 young people and test Twitter on 5,000 young people, they will not allow it.
Everything that you create and you invent depends how you're using it. You
Okay,
can either
yeah.
destroy the world or help the world, and it's both.
Whoever can do a buck from everything will push it.
But this is not new.
But we have to make sure that we protect the
So
kids.
we have maybe,
I
okay,
think protecting the kids is educating them to
in the
use the
correct
tools
way.
that are a
But
part of the world versus trying to limit them.
Social
Karin,
pressure is more strong than any education.
Karin, you have a 1-year-old at home.
Yeah.
She's going to a different world that you're now just stepping in a very minimum way. How would you equip her in order to deal with this?
I will teach her the tools that are relevant to the reality she's walking into. If she's going to walk into a reality where a visual on Instagram could be fake by manipulation, could be fake
How should it know?
by anything, I will teach her that she has to double, triple check things for the real versus not real, because AI can generate that. I will teach her that imagination cannot be replaced. With all the respect to all the AI in the world, if you have imagination, that's the tool. If you're flexible enough to see the technology is always moving forward, we're gonna either stop, go,
Okay.
be so scared about it and end up losing a lot. Because that's what usually happen. All the technology that every time we change in terms of technology, we get so scared. But we get so scared because we don't know what it means. I've been anti-Facebook for years. It's something that I really passionately hate. I don't like Facebook. I don't like what social media has done to the world. And I can tell you that it's been something that, again, when it started and where it is today is where AI is going to be where it started today. And in 10 years, we'll see the bad things. They're going to happen. We have to just make sure that as humans with the basic understanding, we can teach kids and grown-ups, because I think most people that are really intimidated are people that are seeing where it's going to hurt them personally, because AI at the end of the day is going to replace my friend who's a copywriter, my other friend who's a photographer, but it's not really going to replace them. It's going to give them a tool that can make their job better, faster, smarter. It can
It will do it for them because it's cheaper to use AI than
But
photographer.
Tzipi, you cannot stop the world from the
Well,
technological
I'm not telling
world
you
from-
many countries are going to take
Hold on.
6 months and test it.
Okay, so they'll test it and then they'll go back to it. You cannot
see.
stop it. And the problem is that instead of fighting it, you have to learn what to do in order to bring it in a better way. I think that one of the main things that we shouldn't give up is ethics, because I think that ethics is not
You're
being
right.
studied enough.
Yes.
And you have to push ethics all the time in a very, very
Yes.
strong way. And change a little bit the education system in a sense that it's helpful and you can really lead them in a safer way towards something else. Bad people will take over, money people will take over, always on everything. But we have to make the best out of it. And I think it's in a way it's exciting because
there are billions of people who cannot do anything.
It's exciting and it needs regulation. And you're right, 50% of the people who would approach it will take advantage of the bad part of it, and 50% no. But when you're seeing about the good things, like, and there's a lot of conversation about the good things, it's going to progress science 10 times faster than before, because now there's a machine that can test and figure out things that they needed so many people and sometimes brain power that we just don't have. And I'm a big fan of that sentence that says, like, if technology, future fear of technology is a mind killer, because if you fear it, it would stop you from seeing the potential.
No, I just want to know how can we make it, reduce the damage.
So
regulation.
you have to build
regulation,
a whole
100%.
system to protect
Of
it.
course, and also the
You know,
ethical, as you say.
The older we get, we are always rushing after the tail of the new thing. And the older we get slower and more upset because it's hard to catch it and it's hard to be part of it. So we are standing back and we're protecting our old ways, and it won't help. And it's very hard to move fast enough in order to get it. There is something that we people, in one hand, we're not flexible enough in order to work to mold it well, into our way of life. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have to
It's
move
like a
on.
snowball.
Yeah.
It always moves forward. It never stops. The only thing you can really do is realize that, like, the world is always progressing. Like, let's just say,
No. Don't mix it. Not the world. Technology is progressing. People are the same. People are the same. They're just the
we
way
should
they
progress
use
as
technology.
well.
Always change with technologies. It's not.
Yeah, but people, the
always
quality,
change.
the human qualities, same.
Yeah, but the bad qualities of humans, like power,
Same.
the need to control.
But that's the leading part.
Right.
That's the leading part. What can you do?
But that's like the amount of AI that we have right now that is in use without most people knowing the AI is helping them. Like, when you apply for a job, nobody reads your resume. There's an AI that reads your resume and puts you in the right order. So there's already AI in use in most everywhere. The fact that it's accessible to the public for free and they're giving us the lowest the least intelligent version right now just to see what happens. They're invoking a conversation that it's going to be more relevant in 6 months. It's going to be a lot more relevant in 5 years. But the way I use it was to solve a problem. I saw like I had a problem and that helped me solve a problem. I think there's million use cases, definitely million
I
use
miss
cases.
the human touch, the human judgment. I miss it. But on the other hand, there's so many bad decisions that made by the wrong people that affect many people's future. So it's really tricky how you play with this. But listen, it's a challenge.
I
There's
am just
always a
thinking what will
challenge.
happen, but it's not, we don't have time for that. I'm going to think how it will affect documentary films. Documentary films.
So I think documentary films, when you're thinking about it, the human aspect is such a core part of documentary, because without somebody telling a story from their own perspective, and stories can be told in different ways, as we
Still do
know.
documentary, that will be not the truth, I will say.
I have an idea. You should do a documentary about what happens with AI. Start now. In 10 years, I'm sure it's gonna like be wild. But again, I'm a fan of the conversation more from versus the technology. I think the technology is amazing, of course, but I love the conversation. I love that we are aware that it exists. Like I grew up watching Terminator 2. In Terminator 2, there's a platform that controls the world and the robots are killing all of us. And I thought that was the future. So for me, what's going on right now is a little bit close to what I thought would be the future. But the other hand is we've always been told about the futuristic, like computers are going to take over. They've been feeding us this for years. AI has been a part of cinema for so long. How could we imagine that it won't be in real life? When Jules Verne talked about like doing everything and people were like, wait, we didn't invent the submarine yet. We invented the submarine after him. So it's like we kind of made it happen because we've been talking about it for so long. So I'm hoping that it won't be as bad as social media.
Fascinating.
I can hope.
Fascinating conversation.
Thank you for coming. Good luck with the show.
Good luck. And keep going.
That's right. That's right. Bye, everybody. Bye, Tzipi.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.